In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The grand auditorium in downtown Chicago shimmered beneath towering crystal chandeliers as nearly 1,000 guests filled the velvet-lined seats, waiting for a debate that had already gone viral across the country. Camera crews from major networks stood along the back wall, their lenses fixed on the brightly lit stage where a single podium stood beneath a spotlight. At exactly 8 o'clock, a tall woman in a tailored black suit stepped into the light, her heels striking the polished floor with controlled precision. The audience erupted into applause as Isabella Montgomery, billionaire tech mogul and outspoken critic of organized religion, took her place behind the podium. She rested her palms on the smooth wood surface and allowed the applause to settle, her gaze sweeping across the crowd with unmistakable confidence. A faint, knowing smile curved across her face as she leaned toward the microphone. "I've debated theologians, philosophers, and scholars on 3 continents," she began, her American accent steady and commanding. Her voice carried effortlessly through the sound system, filling the auditorium with authority. "I've studied Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and secular humanism for over 20 years, she continued, pausing just long enough for the audience to absorb her credentials. She reached into a sleek leather folder and slowly lifted a signed blank check into the air. The giant screen behind her zoomed in, revealing her unmistakable signature and the empty space waiting for a number. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. "If anyone here can prove to me, using pure logic, that Islam makes more sense than Christianity," she declared, holding the check higher, "this entire pledged fortune will be transferred immediately." The crowd buzzed with excitement as phone screens flickered throughout the darkened seating area. "And if I lose," she added confidently, lowering the check back onto the podium, "I will publicly embrace Islam tonight." Her supporters near the front rows burst into applause, some rising from their seats. Isabella raised one hand, silencing them with ease. "But let's be realistic," she said with a subtle smirk. "I have yet to meet a Muslim who can defeat me in reason." A heavy silence settled over the sections where Muslim attendees sat quietly. She tapped the microphone lightly, the sharp sound slicing through the tension. "So," she challenged boldly, scanning the hall, "is there anyone here brave enough to step forward?" The auditorium froze. No scholar moved. No imam stood. No professor cleared his throat. Isabella exhaled slowly, almost theatrically, as though the silence confirmed her superiority. She opened her mouth to begin dismantling what she expected would be an undefended belief system. Before she could speak, the soft echo of footsteps drifted from the back aisle. Heads turned one by one as the crowd parted slightly. A young boy in a simple white shirt and modest cap walked steadily toward the stage, his steps calm and deliberate. Whispers spread across the hall like wind through leaves. The boy climbed the stage steps carefully, one hand brushing the railing for balance as cameras swiveled in his direction. Isabella stared at him, confusion briefly replacing her confidence. The boy adjusted the microphone downward to match his height, his movements steady. "My name is Adam Rahman," he said clearly, his voice calm despite the size of the audience. A few scattered laughs broke out from Isabella's supporters. "If the challenge is open to anyone," Adam continued respectfully, "then I would like to accept." Isabella let out a short laugh, folding her arms across her chest. "Is there truly no adult willing to defend your faith?" she asked, her tone edged with sarcasm. Adam maintained eye contact without a hint of irritation. "I'm not here to fight," he replied softly. "I'm here to search for the truth." The sincerity in his voice caused several audience members to lean forward. Isabella studied him for a moment, then gestured toward the microphone. "Very well," she said coolly. "You may begin." Adam inhaled slowly, steadying himself beneath the lights. "If Jesus is God," he asked gently, "who was governing the universe when he was crucified?" The question struck the room with unexpected force. Several people shifted in their seats. Isabella straightened her posture and answered carefully. "Jesus sacrificed himself," she replied. "That was part of divine purpose." Adam tilted his head slightly. "If God died," he continued calmly, Did existence continue without its creator? The silence deepened. God came in human form, Isabella responded, gripping the podium. Adam nodded slowly. If God becomes human and can be harmed, he asked, does that mean human beings can overpower God? A faint tension crept into Isabella's expression. In Islam, Adam explained gently, God is eternal, never born, never dying, and never subject to weakness. A man in the front row removed his glasses, staring intensely at the stage. Miracles don't prove someone is God, Adam added calmly. They show that God supports his messengers. Isabella reached for her tablet, determined to reclaim control. If you believe Islam is logical, she said firmly, then I have 25 questions prepared. Adam offered a respectful nod. I will answer honestly, he replied. Isabella glanced down at the screen and took a measured breath. First question, she announced clearly. If God already knows everything, why create humans who will disobey? Adam lifted his eyes calmly toward her, and in that charged moment, the real debate truly began. Adam stood quietly beneath the bright stage lights as the auditorium waited for his answer to the first question. He folded his hands gently in front of him and spoke with calm clarity. God's knowledge of our choices does not remove our ability to choose, he said in an even tone. A subtle murmur moved through the audience as people considered the simplicity of his response. Life is a test, Adam continued, not because God needs information, but because we need the opportunity to reveal our character. Isabella narrowed her eyes slightly, listening more intently than before. A teacher gives an exam knowing the material, Adam explained. The exam exists to reveal the student's effort, not to inform the teacher. Several heads nodded in quiet agreement. Isabella glanced down at her tablet and moved to the next question. If God is completely self-sufficient, she asked firmly, why create angels? Adam answered without hesitation. Angels are not partners to God, he said calmly. They are created beings who carry out his commands. He paused briefly before continuing. Order does not imply dependence. It reflects wisdom. The tension in the hall softened slightly. Isabella shifted her stance and advanced. Why were there multiple scriptures across history? She asked. Why not send one universal book from the beginning? Adam adjusted the microphone slightly and replied. Human societies changed over time, he said. Guidance was given according to each community's capacity and context. He met her gaze directly. The final revelation was preserved for all humanity because it was meant to remain unchanged. Isabella inhaled slowly before pressing further. If the Quran is the final book, she said, why was Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, necessary? Adam's expression reflected respect. A message requires a living example, he answered gently. Words alone can be misinterpreted. He continued carefully. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, demonstrated how to live those teachings with mercy, justice, and discipline. The audience listened in thoughtful silence. Isabella folded her arms again. If God wants belief, she challenged, why not reveal himself directly to humanity? Adam shook his head slightly. If God appeared in a physical form, he said, he would resemble creation. He allowed a brief pause before finishing. And if he resembles creation, he would no longer be beyond limitation. The stillness in the hall deepened. Isabella advanced to another question. What proof is there that Islam is true? She demanded. Adam replied calmly. The message emphasizes pure monotheism, he said. One creator, without division or dependency. He continued steadily. The scripture has remained preserved and internally consistent, inviting scrutiny rather than fearing it. A few audience members exchanged thoughtful glances. Isabella moved forward quickly. Why do Muslims pray facing the Kaaba? She asked. Isn't that object worship? Adam answered evenly. The direction creates unity, he explained. The structure itself is not worshipped. He gestured lightly. It is a symbol of focus, not divinity. The tension shifted into curiosity. Isabella pressed on. Why did Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, participate in battles? She asked. Adam responded calmly. Those conflicts occurred after persecution and exile, he said. They were defensive. He held her gaze. Self-defense is not aggression. Scattered applause broke out before fading into silence again. Isabella's tone softened slightly. If God is merciful, she asked, why create hell? Adam's voice remained composed. Justice is part of mercy, he said. Without accountability, oppression would have no consequence. He added quietly, true fairness protects the innocent and addresses the unjust. The room remained still. Isabella glanced at her tablet again. Why is hijab required? She asked, less confrontational than before. Adam replied with warmth. Modesty protects dignity, he said. It applies to both men and women. He continued gently. It shifts focus from appearance to character. Several audience members reflected silently. Isabella continued. Why create Satan? She asked. Adam answered calmly. Temptation allows moral growth, he said. Without struggle, virtue has no meaning. He paused briefly. Choice gives actions value. A subtle murmur passed through the hall. Isabella advanced again. Why is pork forbidden? She asked. Adam responded simply. Some prohibitions protect well-being, he said. Guidance often precedes scientific explanation. He maintained steady eye contact. Trust sometimes comes before understanding. Isabella's posture softened. If God is good, she asked, why do disasters happen? Adam's tone remained gentle. Some disasters result from human behavior, he said. Others serve as reminders of human limitation. He added quietly, hardship often awakens compassion and reflection. The auditorium fell into thoughtful silence. Isabella lowered her tablet slowly. How are you answering all of this so easily? She asked in a quieter voice. Adam gave a small, humble smile. I studied what my teachers taught me, he said. He paused gently. And guidance comes from God. The air felt heavier now, no longer charged with mockery but with seriousness. Isabella lifted her tablet again, though her voice had lost its earlier edge. Very well, she said slowly. Let's return to Jesus. Adam nodded respectfully. The debate was about to enter deeper territory. A focused silence settled over the auditorium as Isabella raised her eyes from the tablet and fixed them directly on Adam. She straightened her shoulders as though reminding herself who she was, then spoke with controlled intensity. Let's clarify something, she said firmly. Who do you believe Jesus really is? Adam stood steady beneath the lights, his expression calm and unshaken. In Islam, he replied gently, Jesus is one of the greatest prophets, honored and chosen by God. A faint ripple of reaction passed through the audience. If he was only a prophet, Isabella pressed, how did he perform miracles like raising the dead and healing the blind? Adam answered without hesitation. Miracles are signs granted by God, he said. They demonstrate divine support, not divinity. He paused briefly. Moses parted the sea, and Abraham survived the fire, yet no one calls them God. Isabella stepped slightly closer to the podium, tightening her grip. Jesus was born without a father, she said sharply. Doesn't that make him more than human? Adam nodded respectfully. His birth was miraculous, he agreed. But Adam had neither father nor mother. He allowed a short silence. A miraculous origin does not make someone divine. Several people in the audience exchanged thoughtful glances. Isabella inhaled and shifted her approach. Why is he called the Son of God in Christian belief? She asked. Adam responded in an even tone. In ancient language, Son of God often meant a righteous servant chosen by God, he explained. He continued calmly. It did not imply a literal biological relationship. Isabella's confidence flickered as she advanced. Then why was Jesus raised to heaven? She asked. Adam replied without tension. Being raised by God reflects honor and protection, he said. He added gently, Elevation does not equal divinity. The atmosphere grew heavier. What about the statement that he and the Father are one? Isabella challenged. Adam met her gaze directly. That expresses unity of purpose, he answered. It reflects alignment in mission, not equality in nature. He continued evenly. Even followers in Scripture are described as one in spirit. Isabella's voice softened slightly. If Jesus forgave sins, she asked, does that not indicate divine authority? Adam replied calmly. Prophets pray for forgiveness on behalf of their people, he said. He added quietly, but ultimate forgiveness belongs to God alone. The audience remained motionless. Isabella took a slower breath. Jesus said he is the way, she continued. How do you interpret that? Adam answered thoughtfully. Every prophet guided their people toward God, he said. He paused before finishing. Being a path does not make someone the destination. A few scattered nods appeared in the crowd. Isabella's posture changed subtly as she felt the shift. If millions worship him, she asked, does that not suggest truth? Adam's expression remained gentle. Popularity does not define truth, he said. He continued calmly. History shows that many beliefs gained followers without being correct. The silence thickened. Isabella stared at the boy standing before her. She seemed to be searching not just for an answer but for certainty. She swallowed slowly. Then tell me clearly, she said, her voice no longer mocking. Who is Jesus to you? Adam lifted his chin slightly. He is a servant of God, he said softly. He continued with calm conviction. A noble messenger who called people to worship the one who created him. The stillness in the auditorium became almost overwhelming. Isabella lowered her gaze for the first time that evening. Her grip on the microphone loosened. Adam remained composed, showing no triumph. I'm not here to defeat you, he said gently. He added quietly, I only want clarity. The words lingered in the air. Isabella blinked slowly as though steadying herself. The bright lights that once energized her now felt almost exposing. She lifted the microphone again, but her voice carried a different tone. I have one more question, she said softly. Adam nodded respectfully. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. If God is loving and all-powerful, Isabella asked, why not come to earth directly so everyone would believe? A ripple of anticipation passed through the crowd. Adam did not rush his response. If God became human, he said carefully, he would experience hunger, weakness, and limitation. He held her gaze. And anything limited cannot be the unlimited creator. The silence deepened further. God guides humanity through revelation, Adam continued softly. Through messengers, not transformation. Isabella closed her eyes briefly. The debate had moved beyond intellectual exchange. It had entered the realm of personal reflection. Adam waited patiently, and for the first time that evening, Isabella had no immediate answer. A heavy silence settled over the auditorium as Isabella slowly opened her eyes again, her earlier confidence replaced by visible inner struggle. She steadied herself against the podium and spoke more quietly than before. If God does not appear physically, she asked, how can human beings truly know him? Adam answered with calm clarity. Through revelation, he said gently. Through messengers who teach his will without claiming his identity. Several audience members leaned forward, sensing the seriousness of the moment. But people need something they can see, Isabella insisted softly. Something tangible. Adam shook his head slightly. The human eye cannot contain the full reality of the Creator, he replied. If God became limited to a physical form, he would no longer be beyond limitation. The statement hung in the air. So believing that God became human, Isabella whispered, would actually reduce him? Adam nodded calmly. If the Creator becomes subject to hunger, fatigue, pain, or death, he said, then he shares the weaknesses of creation. A quiet murmur moved through the hall. Isabella stepped back from the podium for the first time that night. Her composed posture began to soften under the stage lights. What about love? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Isn't sacrifice the ultimate expression of love? Adam's tone remained gentle. An all-powerful God does not need to suffer in order to forgive, he said. Forgiveness comes from authority, not vulnerability. The audience remained perfectly still. For years, Isabella admitted slowly, I believed that sacrifice proved divinity. Adam did not interrupt. Power does not need to prove itself through weakness, he said quietly. True greatness remains independent. The words struck deeper than any argument earlier in the debate. Isabella looked out at the crowd, her eyes reflecting emotion rather than dominance. Are you saying, she asked softly, that I misunderstood the nature of God? Adam's expression showed compassion, not victory. Seeking truth is never wrong, he replied. But sometimes traditions evolve beyond their original message. The statement felt more like guidance than criticism. Isabella lowered her head slightly. For decades, she said, I debated others to defend what I thought was absolute truth. The auditorium remained silent, aware that something significant was unfolding. I defeated scholars and pastors, she continued, her voice cracking faintly. I never questioned myself. Adam stepped forward slightly, maintaining respectful distance. Truth does not humiliate, he said gently. It invites reflection. Isabella exhaled slowly as though releasing years of tension. If Jesus is not God, she said quietly, then who was he truly? Adam answered with steady conviction. He was a servant of the one who created him, he said, a messenger sent to call people back to pure worship. The simplicity of the response carried unexpected strength. And he was protected, Adam added softly. He was not abandoned. Isabella looked up sharply. You believe he was saved? She asked. Adam nodded calmly. In our belief, he said, God honored him and did not allow him to be defeated. The perspective reframed everything she had argued for years. For so long, Isabella whispered, I mocked that belief. Her voice trembled openly now. Arrogance can cloud vision, Adam said gently. Humility clears it. There was no accusation in his tone, only sincerity. Isabella slowly moved toward a chair placed at the edge of the stage. She sat down carefully, her powerful public persona visibly dissolving. I built walls, she admitted quietly. Walls made of pride. No one in the audience moved. No one interrupted. Adam remained standing, composed and respectful. It is never too late to seek clarity, he said calmly. A tear slipped down Isabella's cheek. Then teach me, she whispered. The microphones carried her words clearly through the hall. Adam looked at her with steady compassion. Belief begins with recognizing one creator, he said gently. Without partners and without division. The air felt charged with emotion. And it continues with accepting the final messenger, he added respectfully. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Isabella closed her eyes as though absorbing each word deeply. The debate had transformed completely. It was no longer about winning or losing. It was about surrendering pride for truth. Adam waited patiently, and Isabella knew that the next step would change her life forever. The auditorium remained utterly silent as Isabella slowly rose from the chair, her movements no longer driven by pride but by reflection. She wiped her tears without embarrassment, accepting the vulnerability that now defined her expression. Thousands of eyes remained fixed on her, yet for the first time in years, she did not crave their approval. She turned toward Adam, the young boy who had stood before her without arrogance, without fear, and without hostility. Tell me, she said softly, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. What must a person say to begin again? Adam stood upright, his small frame composed beneath the bright lights. Faith begins, he replied gently, by acknowledging that there is only one creator. The audience leaned forward collectively, sensing the gravity of the moment. That creator has no partners, no equals, and no division. Adam continued calmly. A deep stillness filled the hall. And faith continues, he added respectfully, by accepting that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his final messenger. Isabella closed her eyes briefly, allowing the words to settle into her heart. The once commanding billionaire now appeared like someone standing at the edge of an entirely new life. She stepped back toward the podium, her heels quieter than before. "I built my life on intellect and achievement," she admitted openly, her voice echoing through the auditorium. A quiet wave of emotion spread across the audience. "I believed that intelligence meant winning every argument," she continued. Her voice trembled slightly. "But tonight, a child showed me that truth is not about victory." The crowd remained motionless. "It is about surrendering to what is real," she said softly. Adam stood silently, offering no interruption and no sign of triumph. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Isabella lifted her chin and faced the microphone directly. With full sincerity, she declared, "I testify that there is no God but the one true Creator." The words left her lips slowly and deliberately. "And I testify that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his messenger." For a brief second, silence filled the space. Then the auditorium erupted into overwhelming applause. Some members of the audience rose to their feet instantly. Others covered their mouths in disbelief. A few wept openly. Adam lowered his head respectfully. Isabella stepped away from the podium and faced him. "Thank you," she whispered. Adam shook his head gently. "Thank God," he replied softly. The applause continued for several long moments, echoing off the marble walls and crystal chandeliers. Isabella wiped her face once more, but this time her expression carried calm rather than tension. "I promised that if I lost, I would give my pledged fortune," she said clearly as the crowd gradually quieted. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. "I will honor that promise," she continued firmly. She paused for a breath. "But not because I was defeated." The audience listened closely. "I will give it because I found something greater than wealth," she said. "Clarity." The hall responded with renewed applause, this time filled with admiration rather than spectacle. Adam stepped slightly to the side, allowing her the stage without overshadowing her decision. "For years," Isabella reflected, "I criticized a faith I never studied with humility." She looked at Adam once more. Tonight, humility defeated arrogance. The words carried weight but no bitterness. The audience slowly settled as the applause faded. Isabella turned one final time toward the microphone. "Pride blinded me," she admitted, "but humility opened my eyes." The hall remained silent in respect. Adam remained still, his hands folded gently in front of him. He did not smile widely. He did not celebrate. He simply stood as a witness to transformation. Cameras continued recording as Isabella stepped away from the stage lights. Her walk was slower than before, yet lighter. The same woman who had entered with dominance now exited with peace. As the audience began to disperse, many approached Adam with emotion in their eyes. He responded quietly to each of them. "I am not the source of truth," he repeated softly. "Truth belongs to God." Outside the auditorium, reporters rushed to broadcast what had unfolded inside. Inside, the chandeliers continued to glow over a stage that had witnessed more than a debate. It had witnessed a transformation of the heart. Isabella paused near the exit doors and looked back once more. For the first time in her life, she felt peace without applause. And in that quiet realization, she understood something greater than any argument she had ever won. True victory is not defeating others. It is conquering the ego within. The debate had begun with challenge and pride. It ended with surrender and light. And long after the applause faded, the lesson remained. Guidance does not belong to wealth, intelligence, or status. It belongs to the one who grants it.